call the September 18th Reidsville City Council, Reidsville Planning Board to order. First, let's do a roll call. Thomas Thompson.
Present.
Joe Towns.
Here.
Dylan Moore here. Cindy Scarborough.
Here.
William Roach.
Present.
And Tamara Lipscomb.
Here.
Okay, perfect. Let's move into the approval of the minutes from July 17th, 2024. Are there two here, or is it just one? It's just really long, isn't it?
Well, that was, yeah,
It was
that was a
really
long
long.
one. That was the long one.
No changes need to be made. Can have a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Motion needs to be seconded. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Great. First item of consideration is of a text amendment request to amend Article 5, Section 2. Notes to the table are permitted uses to revise the existing standards for crematories. Drew.
All right, let me get this adjusted. So planning staff is petitioning to amend Article 5, Section 2, notes to the table of permitted uses, Note 33, crematory of the zoning ordinance. Standards are provided for crematory as an accessory use to funeral homes located in the office and institutional, general business, and highway business districts. The current standards identified in Note 33 are outdated and restrictive. Per our research, we have been unable to identify any other local governments in the Triad, Triangle, or Mountain region that have these same requirements. Our professional observation is that our ordinance's requirements for crematories to be located in the principal structure is unnecessary, and it is likely safer for crematories to be located in a detached building. Our ordinance's requirements for state approvals are redundant, as the crematory operator must obtain these approvals before operating. Finally, the limit of one cremation chamber is unnecessary, as long as the applicant meets the requirements of the state building code and other state regulations for crematories. The amended Note 33 will state that all crematories shall comply with all requirements of the North Carolina Crematory Act, as amended or superseded. Crematories are to be allowed only as an accessory use to permitted funeral homes. Crematories must be located within an enclosed structure, and where a crematory facility located in an accessory building abuts a residential land use or zoning district, a continuous buffer of not less than 6 feet in height shall be provided along the property lines separating the land uses. The buffer may be comprised of a fence or a mixture of solid and continuous evergreen hedges and trees. With these changes to Note 33, the planning staff recommends the adoption of the proposed text amendment. And I'll take questions.
The only question I had, Drew, is just about any kind of environmental impact, mostly air. Is there any kind of, that you know of, I don't know a lot about crematoriums, but that there be any kind of pollution or is there, I guess there's state regulations around that?
Yes, so our current standards outline those individually, but those are all covered by the Crematory Act. So
Okay.
anything related to environmental or air quality is covered by that statement that they must meet the standards of
Okay,
the
that's what I
Crematory
figured.
Act.
I just wanted to,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I wanted to ask about. Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
One question, right here where it says crematory operations shall be conducted in the principal building, but you did say it had to be a detached building away from the funeral home, correct?
Yes, so if you're looking at the report,
Okay.
the first section where it says Note 33, that's our current standards.
Okay.
Okay.
The bottom section of that is the amended standard that we're proposing today.
Okay, thank you.
Got a straggler.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Everyone welcome Mr. James Motley.
Thank you.
My apologies for the delay.
No worries. We just went over the docket introduction for the first item of consideration for the crematory. Are you up to speed on it, you feel like? Okay. Do you have any questions for staff on it?
You already stood down, is that correct, Jason?
Okay, it was true. It was true.
Okay.
Did you have any questions?
I do. The question, I presume that this whole matter comes as a result of request.
It does.
Okay. And I see that it appears that you guys did a canvassing, a survey of other municipal areas.
Yes, sir.
Similar to ours, where this would apply, so you're able to draw from those things
Yes, sir.
exactly what would apply here. Is that right? I saw that some of the regulations, some part of the regulation was going to delete portions that were there. Why was that done?
So a portion of what's being deleted is already covered by the Crematory Act.
Okay.
So the initial Note 33 outlined those individual standards that the Act requires. So just not to be redundant, we've removed that language, and we've just kept the language that crematories must comply with the Crematory Act.
And that covers all those
It
things?
covers all of those concerns about the permitting and the pollution and the environmental concerns that Cindy had.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The only other thing that I wanted to note was a couple of typos in the, did you get the voicemail that I sent about that?
I did not, is it in the report or is it in the minutes?
It's in the amendment report itself, the second page of the amendment report. First paragraph, DOE should be does, and the last sentence of the second page, the planning staff recommends. So they're just typo things.
Okay, do you have any other questions related to the
No, ma'am.
content?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Anyone else have any questions?
I think so. Currently, what is the funeral homes in? Is it like highway? What's the?
It's the same. So general business, office and institutional, and there's a third one that's identified in the report.
Okay. Do they have to get a special use permit currently?
Not that I'm aware of, no. We just have the note with the standards.
Okay.
Are the boundaries retroactive to the ones that's operating now, the 6 foot, whatever it is?
No.
Are we allowed to ask if there's any operational now?
If there's any what?
Any crematories that are operational now? I don't know.
I would be aware of any. If there are, our records would maybe show that, but I don't have any knowledge of any currently active.
I'm pretty sure Wilkerson's Funeral Home has one.
Yeah.
I know
That's what I was thinking. That's the
I'm
only
sure
one I
there are
can.
some. There's none that I could quote for you.
So would this, in theory, have to, if they did have a crematory, they would have to move away from their main building?
This doesn't apply to anything that's currently existing.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
This is only for new crematories.
Gotcha. Thanks for
All it
the.
does is that all it says is that you can have it in an accessory building, in an enclosed building. If it's outside, it can be inside or outside.
Oh.
The current ordinance requires that it be in the principal structure. So the ordinance amendment allows them to have it in an enclosed accessory structure. So that's all it's doing. It is just to allow them to have it in an accessory building. It's not the principal structure.
Allows them but doesn't restrict them
It
to
doesn't require them.
require.
Does
Sure.
it also allow them to have two,
It removes the cap on cremation chambers. Yes.
The only other change is the buffer requirement. And that's pretty consistent across all of the different municipalities we looked at. If it abuts a residential lot, there's a buffer.
It removes the cap on them. What's the cap?
There's a cap on the number of cremation chambers that are allowed currently. And if you look in the current note and read that, it shows that there's a limit on the number of cremation chambers allowed currently. I can't remember if you what was it up to.
It currently caps it at 1, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
not a
currently
state
at 1.
standard.
That was a local standard that we had, but this just removes that
Is-
in case they want to.
Is there a state standard cap anymore?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's scary.
I wonder what kind of safeguards they have in place, if they have more than one, and family A and family B is having somebody cremated, how do they know who they got?
I wouldn't have any idea. That would probably fall under the state regulations. That's not a local regulation.
Right. Any more questions for Drew?
I do have one regarding the caps. Is there the possibility that we might end up with some crematorial facility that might have multiple crematories or chambers, that it might become questionable whether it makes sense for the community?
Well, it has to be an accessory use to a funeral home. So someone
Okay.
can just come in and set up, if you read the note that's in there,
Yeah.
it also says that it has to be an accessory use to a permitted funeral home. So that way, it can't just be a crematory operation, it has to be part of a funeral home.
Understood. But within that, is it possible that there might be some reasonable cap that we would want to have other than one, maybe 2, 3?
I mean, I would say we're following the state standard, and if the state doesn't have a cap, I mean, we didn't see a reason to implement a cap. Other municipalities don't
We
have a
haven't
cap.
seen anywhere else that had a cap, so we didn't propose that.
Okay.
I think we're all just a little suspicious that when we see something like this come up, there's always an underlying reason, it seems. I know y'all aren't allowed to tell us, but just it makes me uneasy all the time. Any more questions for Drew?
Thank you for the second time.
Thank you.
And there is no underlying risk. So the reason is that someone came in and they're buying an old building that was a funeral home. There is no cremation chamber currently inside it. It's a wooden structure. So putting a crematory in a wooden structure is not a good idea.
Right.
So
The fire
they're asking to put
yeah.
it in an accessory building.
Sure.
So we couldn't allow them with current standards, so that's the reason they asked staff for it. And, you know, like we've said, we're not doing any text amendment requests on the UDOs in process, so we felt it was something we could go ahead and change before, you know, when the UDO is enacted in the spring, so that was the motivation.
Any discussion amongst the board, or are we ready for a motion? We have a motion that we need to read, or is it just approval of the text amendment?
There is no provided motion.
All right. Here, let me see if I can read this correctly.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend for approval the adoption of the proposed.
Motion's been made and second. A motion has been made. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of approving the text amendment, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that was unanimous, right? Motion passes unanimously. Cool.
All right, next.
Director's report. Is that next?
Yeah, not too much to report on this month. I don't think we have many new businesses to note of. I do want to remind everybody about the next steering committee meeting on October the 7th here at City Hall in the conference room, 5 o'clock, 5 to 9, just like the last one. So we'll have dinner catered just like we did last time for the committee. And so we'll have dinner at 5, probably get started around 5:30. So just mark your calendars down, October the 7th, 5 o'clock. Here at City Hall, so.
Did City Council approve the traditional?
Yes, they did, yeah. They did approve the conditional rezoning for the TND off Reidsville Road, yes, sir.
Is there any more resistance to it at the council meeting?
It was smooth. There was really no, there was a couple people who spoke on it, but not many. But it passed unanimously.
Did y'all talk anymore about the entrance to Urban Loop Road?
They removed that entryway, so there won't be a connection onto Urban Loop from the development. So that was their solution, was to remove the connection onto Urban Loop. Because of the gravel road obviously couldn't handle the trip generation count, so they just removed it from the site plan. So, but there are 2 other entryways, so they have the minimum to meet state fire code for access ways for 100 plus units. So.
Wish they would have chosen a different solution. Wish they would have chosen to help pave that part of Urban Loop Road, but that's their prerogative.
Yes,
When do you see the meeting?
5 o'clock, October 7th at 5 o'clock.
I think that was the only item we had last month for council was just the conditional rezoning. So yeah, that's all I have. Just, we'll see you on October the 7th at 5 o'clock. All right.
Thank you.
Before I sit.
I don't think so.
Any new restaurants or businesses coming to town that you can speak of? You know,
Nothing.
we're gonna ask that every time.
I know. Nothing currently at present time that I don't think we permitted any new businesses, have we, Drew? As far as
There was one permit issued for an art studio retail space downtown, but I'm not sure where they're at with that.
yeah, it's still in project development, I think.
I did hear that this morning at our, I guess it's the Downtown Corporation or Merchants Association.
Oh,
It's some type of boutique and thing going into, I guess it's the former Bushel place, Blessings by the Bushels.
Oh.
It's not the Blessings by the Bushel building, it's the 1001 Treasures.
Oh, 1001 Treasures. Yes, yes. So right in front of it. Yes.
So that's exciting, and I heard they're really good people. So got that coming to downtown.
Any other questions? Okay.
Good. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Any comments from any of us?
That's interesting going on with people.
I have some, but it's gonna be off camera.
What's that?
I said I have some, but it's gonna be off camera.
Yes, the good idea. I think did want to mention that I guess in our redo, we're looking at having, I guess, alternate members,
Oh,
right? So if we could all start thinking about other people, thinking about handing the baton to the next person who you would want to replace you in some sense, because we've had issues, keeping this board full.
Right.
I think that's,
So in our last UDO meeting, what we were talking
Sure,
about
yeah.
that there needs to be alternate members too, to be able to come on if maybe there are, somebody's term limit comes up, or if maybe we don't have enough and then we can have quorum, but that we should have alternate members. And that's one of the things we discussed at the last UDO meeting. So what Dylan's saying is just to maybe think about some people that maybe we might.
Did we approve that? Jason.
No,
Jason,
that's
yes.
the UDO meeting that we.
Jason needs to
that's what
He's trying to
remind us what it is.
Sure.
So as far as the alternate members go, so that's something that we're proposing
Right, that was.
in the new Unified Development Ordinance, is to have 2 alternate members for, it's common practice to have that, especially for the BOA, because especially with the variance, you have to have a 4/5 vote in order to approve it. So you would have
Right.
2 alternate members, and there's a couple different ways you can handle having alternate members. I know a lot of times the alternate members are at every meeting, and if someone doesn't show, they step in. So, or they can be dismissed, if y'all show up, we have a quorum, there's no need for an alternate, we have everyone, there's no need for an alternate member, then you all dismiss the alternate members and they leave. But it's a good idea, so that, especially to make sure we have a quorum and people's items are being heard, especially if there's an application from a private party, to make sure that their items are heard, and we always have a quorum. So that's what we're looking at it. I mean, that wouldn't be implemented obviously until probably the spring. So that's how it would work with the alternate members. And there's a couple different ways we can work with the alternates. The consultant prefers to have them, like I said, at the meeting, and then we dismiss them just to make sure. But there can be other ways that we can work around that, and we'll be discussing that as we get closer to implementation.
Do we choose our own office?
No, they would be positions just like you all. So they would apply for a position on the board, go through the admin office for their position. They would have a term limit, just like you all. So it's the same position, it's just an alternate. It's just that they would step in the event that any of you are not available, so.
And ideally, when we transition off the board, they could potentially be permanent members.
Well, they would still have term limits the same as you all do. So they would have 2 3-year terms.
As alternates?
As alternates, yes.
Oh, well, maybe we
They
need
would
to
have
look at that.
to the same term limits under the general statutes as you all are.
I thought the term for board members here were 5 years.
They're going to change that.
They're going to change.
North Carolina general statutes limit the BOA, the Board of Adjustment, to 3-year terms.
Okay.
And so since you all are both, you're the planning board, but you also serve as the Board of Adjustment. And I know that we haven't had a Board of Adjustment hearing since you joined the board, Mr. Motley. And so the BOA is subject to that limit, so therefore for both boards it makes sense that you all have 3-year term limits.
It's retroactive.
That's something we're going to have to work with the attorney on. I'm not sure how it's going to work with when we implement those, if it's when you're coming up on the 3-year, because a lot of you haven't been on quite for the 5 years yet. Most of you are still under 3 years. So that's something we'll talk about, like I said, closer to implementation.
My letter says 5 years.
Well, that's the way it is currently in our current code.
Okay.
So that's what it is currently, but
She says she's-
this was changed, I think somewhere around 2018 when the state instituted the 3-year term limits for Board of Adjustment members.
However, the
Yeah.
number of terms that we serve is a matter of policy, and that is up for discussion. So, right now, it's 2 5-year terms. We could make it, say, 3 3-year terms. That can be at our discretion and at city council's
That's
discretion.
city council's discretion.
City council's discretion, yes, sir.
Yes, so we could recommend to city council, for example, to say that we would like it to be 3 3-year terms or 4, whatever we would like. It doesn't, the number of terms is not determined by the state, only the length.
Just to be clear, the ordinance that staff will bring forward that we recommend will have 2 3-year term limits.
Yeah,
2
it's
3
very
year terms.
rare they can make these retroactive.
Why is that, Jason? Why is that?
General practice, other cities, you don't typically see a lot of 9-year, 10-year terms for board members. You really don't. None of our other boards, our HBC, all the other boards that we have in other cities, just general practice.
Is there a term limit on, say, mayor or city council?
State law, I don't recall what the term limits are on mayors and city council.
I think there is a mayor or city council. So I think-
Well, y'all just be thinking about people for alternates, and we will discuss this on this October 7th further. Any other comments? If not, we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. James Motley beat you, but that's okay. You can do next. We have a third also. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All right, thank you all.